Hello and welcome to another episode of the Deceptive Reality Podcast. My name is Nick R, and with me is the Piratus bird.
The pirate's favorite letter is the C, Nick. Everyone knows that.
I know I said I wasn't going to do it, but I did it anyway, matey.
We started out the podcast before we jumped in here, and of course we was doing horrible pirate jokes, if you can't tell. Yeah. And Nick's like, that's how I'm going to open. I'm like, what? I'm like, they'll never understand. Nick's like, yeah, they're definitely not going to understand. But I'm like, listen, it's our world. It's what we do, Nick.
I was having too much fun. I got through the first part real serious, and then I'm like, but I want to.
We need a little scallywag moment, Nick.
A little levity of the sea.
You know, I learned this thing about Jack Sparrow this week. I don't know if you have watched anything on that. Did you know that they left an entire segment, which I think is like one of the most important parts of the entire movie out? And so his ship was always black, right? Black Pearl, right?
Black Pearl. Yeah.
Yeah. Why was it black?
Got burnt.
Why?
That I don't know. I just guessed at that.
You have to search it. Everyone over there, listen, I'm not going to go into it because it cuts into our time and we got a lot of stories we're going to cover today. But when you get time, look up, why was the Black Pearl black? And it is because of burnt.
Oh,
but
interesting.
That's why he always had to have that. But like, I don't understand why they left that out of the entire movie.
Did they film it and then cut it?
I don't know, but someone said that it was in the original story. Mm-hmm. And then when they made the movie, they cut it out. And I think it puts so much depth into the entire movie. I'm like, why would you cut that out?
Yeah. Like, that's weird. You just got done talking how we haven't got a ton of time, but there's something I want to bring up. It's not super paranormal related or anything. But since you started talking about taking things out of movies and stuff like that, have you ever heard of the show called Severance?
Yes.
Have you watched it at all?
No.
So do you know the premise?
Isn't this the one you and I talked about? Or am I thinking of something else? Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Oh, I don't know. What were you thinking?
Remember, I hit you up. I'm like, hey, this is a concept I'm coming up with for a book. Is that the same thing or is that different?
That is the same thing. Yeah. What I was just mentioning that. I mean, it's quite, it's got a lot of differences what you were talking about in this.
Oh, does it? Okay.
But this just ended not long ago and it's the talk of everyone. And the concept is really cool where they can segment your mind into basically two people. One of them that's just at this office that works. And when it goes into an elevator and you leave, you become your regular self, but you have no recollection of what you did at work. And your work self has no recollection of your life. They just keep showing up and working all the time.
Yeah.
And you just live your life all the time. Isn't that something? Like, isn't that
It's definitely an interesting concept. You know, Nick and I talk about on this podcast a lot of things that I would say are in the fringe. It's not necessarily, things that you would sit around a water cooler and talk about, unless you're someone like me and Nick. But above and beyond that,
yeah, we'd be talking the heck out of this stuff.
Exactly. But I was sitting there. It was funny because we had a podcast talking about AI, which I guess we talk about AI a lot. But I came up with I thought it was a great concept. So I started writing everything down. And then as I wrote it down, I threw everything into AI. And then I was like, don't let me lose this concept. So I was building all these concepts. And when I got done, I'm like, because I thought I was being slick. I'm like, is there any show or any movie or any book that has already came up with this concept? And it brought up three. It brought up The Matrix. It brought up The Black Mirror. Is that what it's called?
Oh, yeah. Black Mirror. That's a popular.
I'm sitting there thinking,
show.
We just talked about the Black Pearl, and I'm like, maybe it's not called Black, but yeah, the Black Mirror. And then it brought up Severance. And I didn't know what Severance was. And I've not seen, I think I saw an episode of the Black Mirror.
Oh, but only one episode of the Black Mirror?
I think so. One or two. It wasn't really a lot.
Popular too. I really think you should watch Severance because you'll appreciate it. Every episode is a visual cinematographic masterpiece.
See, my only fear of it is like I have this concept that I want to run with, and I'm scared I'm going to steal something because it's already like, hey, you're already like the way it explained it is it's not exactly the same. It's a little different.
It's not.
But I'm like, if I see something that's close, like the Matrix, I guess I understand why it said the Matrix is similar to it. I guess I can understand, but I'm sitting there thinking the Matrix is a stretch too for what I've got.
Right. I think it was telling you things that are similar where people have like lives that are not real and lives that are real.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it was trying to express to you. But there's so many layers of this show. I think you're right. Maybe you shouldn't watch it until you're done your project, because just watching it, I'm like, one of my friends was telling me about things I missed in it because there's so many things built into it that I'm tempted to steal stuff.
I know that there's one scene that you and I talked about. It's the only thing I know because I watched a video on it and I'm like, well, that seems interesting. But I think it's only on Apple TV, right?
Yeah. Or the Internet Library.
Which I don't have Apple TV. So I don't know. Is it usually when I watch something, it's on like Prime or Netflix or Hulu or like, we're not an Apple household. Like each of my kids have like an iPad. Had to think about what it was called there for a second. They've got iPads.
When did they get them? You might have 3 months of Apple TV.
A while ago, like
it might still be available.
I think my daughter got hers 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and then my son was probably a couple Christmases ago, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm telling you this anyway. Don't watch it.
Yeah,
because you want to steal it. It's got everything. It's like a comedy, then a drama, then a suspense, and then, in my opinion, an all-out horror. All in one. And the director is Ben Stiller.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said. Ben Stiller.
Interesting. Oh, which reminds me, I totally forgot about this too. Somewhat related, but not really. I was watching something. The heck was I watching? Oh, I was watching the Corridor Crew. You know, we talk about them a decent amount over here. And they were talking about M. Night Shyamalan for whatever reason.
Like we were.
Yeah, similar to us. Of course, they were going into something completely different. I know what it was. They was talking about films and how there's certain things that CGI is not perfect and blah, blah, blah. They had made a comment about M. Night Shyamalan because they were one of the things that they were talking about was the Will Smith, Jaden Smith. Remember how I said that doesn't have anything to do with M. Night Shyamalan? Like, that's not an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Yeah, I thought I figured out what you were talking about after that. So I have seen that movie.
Here's what's weird.
M. Night?
Yeah, M. Night did have something to do with that movie.
Man, that's so outside of what I'd expect from him.
Me too. I know the movie didn't do that well because I think that people make fun of it. But they was talking about apparently, hopefully this isn't a spoiler. I've never seen the movie, but supposedly there's a part where basically Jaden falls and this monster walks over top of him. And they was talking about the monster that was CGI'd into it and how there was a lot of things that was great, but there was a lot of things that wasn't so great. Yeah. But when they're talking about these like M. Night Shyamalan, I'm like, dang it, man. I said last week I didn't think he had anything to do with that, but he did.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people absolutely panned that movie, but I was okay with it. Like, I didn't really. If I saw it in theaters, I would have been like, I don't know. I paid a lot of money to be here.
We've done that a lot.
Just seeing it at home, I was like, yeah, this is all right.
Interesting. Huh. Well,
it was part of built into the story, but the characters didn't have any depth, but they weren't supposed to be for a reason. So it was all right. I give it a thumbs sideways.
Sideways thumb. Hey, that's worth something in my opinion.
Yeah, it could go either way.
50-50. Yeah, I thought that was interesting that we covered that.
Yeah.
You know, a big thing last week, Nick, we covered a story on the old Bigfoot. The
good old Sam Squanch.
The elusive Bigfoot. I was going through the TikTok machine this week, Nick, and guess what I ran into?
More big feeds.
Yeah, but as an audio of the Bigfoot, it was a video too, but the video is kind of worthless. So I think what we'll do is just listen to it. I don't think I need to play the video for it, but I kind of want to get your opinion of this phone call. This is a guy calling into, I think it's like a police department or a sheriff or something. And what he's trying to do is basically talk about this thing in his backyard. But I found it kind of interesting. Check this out. See what you think.
Okay.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. Looks like a man. I don't know what it was. Just that it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. I couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. But whatever it was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Okay. And the guy is on foot.
I don't know what... It's a big... real big person. That's all I can say.
Okay, but it is a person.
Yeah, I'd say it was a person, somebody really big. But he's all in black.
Is he a black male or a white male? Did you actually see whether, or was he just wearing black?
He's all black and he's big. He is big.
What do you think of that?
That guy's surprised voice?
Yeah.
He saw something. I feel strongly about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no way that he didn't see something.
No. Like when he first, he was just sort of reporting it calmly. And then it come back into view and he was like, oh, that was genuine.
Oh, yeah. See, that's the thing. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, you know what? There's something to that right there.
I wonder if that was actually his property or not that we were seeing, or if that was just some random aerial clip.
See, I think it was just probably some random aerial clip. I tried to look for the original phone call and I could find bits and pieces of it, but that was the best version on that TikTok.
Yeah, that was really wild.
Yeah.
And she was asking all the typical questions, so I don't think it was faked from her side either.
No. But I thought, how interesting is that? First off, he said his dog died the week before.
Yeah. It sounds like he's had repeated problems.
Oh, yeah.
It sounded like most of it was sort of this has happened a number of times. And why don't you guys expect it at this point?
Correct. But the fact that he looks out the window and he's like, he's looking at me.
Yeah, I know. We both laughed at that part.
I was like, gosh, dang, that's creepy as all get out, dude. I couldn't even imagine looking out my back window and seeing this thing that's 6'9". Man. It'd be like Shaq staring in my window.
You know, it'd be weird if he was out there staring in the window. The guy's like, oh, he's just looking at me. And the Bigfoot's out there on his cell phone. He's like, yeah, there's a guy in this box just looking back at me.
He's just staring at me, man. He's just he's on a phone too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. He's like, I'm reporting him. He's stuck in this box.
Man, that's crazy. You know, the TikTok machine has been an absolute terror of things that I've found. It's almost like some of the craziest things I find is almost always on the TikTok machine. So it's I found that Bigfoot story there this week. And we talked about it last week, just vaguely. I'm going to try to cut through these TikTok stories real quick. But we talked about the Oak Island thing, remember?
Yes, I do. I know it well.
And we talked about the Oak Island thing not being with the treasure at the bottom of it. And where I found it was this guy that was, again, on TikTok. And I think it might be the guy's TikTok. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I kind of want to play it and get your impression of that too. That one's a little bit longer, so I might pause it here and there.
Okay.
But the way he talks about it, I kind of find it interesting from a standpoint of Oak Island. So
yeah. Before you play it, TikTok I find to be one of the most unfiltered social media things there is.
Yeah.
Like stuff can live on there untouched for a little while.
On
other ones, it doesn't get on them at all.
Right.
Now, it shows you what it thinks you want to see, but there's still ways to see the weird stuff on there before it's deleted.
See, I think I think it just gives me all the weird stuff because of what I like, Nick.
That's what you've been looking for. That's why.
Oh, man, it's funny. But yeah, it's funny because we did an episode on Oak Island, two episodes, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and we covered what we thought at the end of it, which I find it oh man, I didn't even think about these two things playing together. I've got a story after this too, Nick. Man, I feel like I'm going to fly through all mine here real quick. But let's listen to this Oak Island thing. He's talking about the treasure not being there, and then I'm going to caveat into something else.
All right.
Hi, everybody. I apologize you haven't seen me for 6 weeks, but you know what's happened. Dave Blankenship had given me exclusive rights to write a book about what's in 10X. This is what you see, and this is what they destroyed. Some of it you are going to see them bring up. I can tell you a little bit ahead of time. But first of all, see the post that's attached to a deck of a ship? I've told you all along. This was Chapel's vault. It wasn't a vault. We'll go into that in the end. It's a religious artifact. They may have brought part of it up. I'm not sure yet. A lot of it's crushed. But this is what's in 10X that Dave and Dan Blankenship never got credit for. And I remind you all, I told you what's really down there is a ship. This is a sonar they had done in 2016. That shaft is 10X. That black hollow is what you just saw. Notice the little box here. Notice the squared off bow, and this is where Cannon went. But notice that box there? Guess what? It's the same box in Dan's video too. It's still there, and it's still down there. And if you look on the video, and by the way, I suggest, if you want to see what's really down there, it's on YouTube for everyone to see. Dan Blankenship video 4 or Dan Blankenship video 2.
Out of curiosity, Nick, when we covered this, do you remember, did we cover a theory that it was a boat underneath there?
No, this is all new to me. So he's saying they buried a boat under there.
They're saying that it's definitely a boat underneath there, in which I'll be honest, I've not looked up this YouTube video that he's talking about. It's probably going to go way more in depth. Right. But what I found interesting is he brought up a lot of the things about the treasure not necessarily being 100% under there like it was before. And which you and I talked about, I think at the end, our hypothesis was that whatever was still down there, and we said religious artifact too.
Right. We did. Actually, that's what we landed on in the end.
Yeah.
But our theory was like, it's something they want to keep there. It's not something to be found.
Right. Correct. But I thought that was kind of interesting, but I couldn't remember us talking about a boat. And that's why I wanted to pause it right here. Cause I'm like, I don't remember I'm talking about a boat or us talking about a boat.
We never covered it at all. And I'd never heard this in my life.
Man, we're going to have to go do some research on this boat now, Nick.
let's just go to Oak Island.
Exactly. We need to go.
They can't stop us. I know how to get there.
Yeah, they can't stop. Nick's never been there.
Wink, wink.
Two. Now, also, proof that they've known about this for 2016, when Marty wrote me back and said he'd show it to his brother Rick. They've known about this for years. They've stalled all this time. It's all about a show. For instance, Vanessa the Blonde with rock equipment. This was all ordered last year. They couldn't bring it in because of the hurricanes. Dave told us that. Now, Dave has given us a lot of information. Some of you may or may not know this, what we know from Dave, but listen to this. And he told us it was faked in 10X. Listen to what he told us. You hear it yourself.
Maybe if you hit the play button, sir.
And he said he was getting stuck. So Rick, Marty, myself, and Craig decided to call it quits. Get him out of there before he
never stuck. They faked the second dive, stalled for 8 years. Now they are going to be bringing something up. It may be, I've told many of you before what this really artifact really is a Jewish ark, and there was Hebrew on it. Why it confuses a lot of people is a real Jewish ark is vertical. It's like a pantry closet, not like you see on Indiana Jones. This is what they crushed part of and destroyed. Now, I know they brought something up. Stay tuned in the next couple weeks and we'll see. And working with Dave about how we're going to finish the end of this book.
I thought that was a little bit interesting.
Well, I mean, at least one thing I didn't know that the Jewish arcs were.
I didn't know that either.
That kind of makes more sense, I guess.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
But I'm going to have to ask my brother if he sees anything, like to keep an eye out, because he watches the show.
You know, I watched it for probably the first 4 or 5 seasons and I got ticked off because I never found anything.
I know.
I ain't watching this no more.
Well, now you know they're stalling and
they're trying to make money, trying to make a quick buck.
The real treasure is the money they're making along the way, like they say.
Correct. You know, but something that's interesting, I didn't even piece this together, Nick. I swear to goodness, I came into this with no epiphanies of as far as any of this. Like I was going to talk about this story because we kind of set it up last week. And then I ran into this other story that's based on an episode that we did. But before I jump into that, Nick, do you remember what artifact we thought could possibly be down there that was religious?
Well, we were saying weren't we saying the Ark of the Covenant, or we
did. Yeah, we said the Ark of the Covenant is what we thought because it was so dangerous. It was basically in our minds like a weapon, right?
Yeah. You know what? I thought about it later. Is what if all these past religions are sort of joined together, and the Ark of the Covenant is like Pandora's box? You know, all the old tales of that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be wild?
It would be wild. Listen, we live in a simulation, so anything's possible.
Yeah, some things are on reruns, so. That's
right. But I found it interesting. We did an episode, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months back. And we've talked about it quite a bit, and the video's taken off a little bit. It was, I don't know if you remember it, but it was called, I forget exactly what we called it, because I think it was like Unveiling Psychic, blah, blah, blah. But it was basically on Project 8200, the Project Serpo. Do you remember that episode?
Oh, I do remember that. That was a fun one. I like that.
Oh, yeah, no, it's so cool. And for anyone that doesn't know, definitely look up that case. You can actually watch our episode. I think it's like a little over 2 hours long. But what made it so interesting was it was remote viewers.
Right.
And I forget exactly what year they started all that. But basically what all of this was it was these remote viewers that they hired. It was the CIA. And what they was doing was bringing in these people that could supposedly they could give them a destination or coordinates. And what they would do is they would look for specific people or places or whatever it may be. And what made it so cool was they would lock on, like they would say, go to this coordinate and blah, 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 and then go to that coordinate, blah, blah, blah. And then there'd be someone that wasn't affiliated with the case, right? They would just have an envelope in a different room. And 50% of the time, 50%, 50 percentage sign,
right? They
were right, dead on.
See, that's crazy. Like if you look at the statistics of what you'd get by chance, that is so much higher.
Yeah, because if you remember in that story, they gave the wrong coordinates to one guy, and he was talking about, there's this cabin that you're supposed to be seeing, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I don't see a cabin. Like, I see this underground bunker thing, blah, blah, blah. Right. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, this dude's way off. And then they went to the coordinates, and they're like, oh, no, that was beyond the cabin, if you remember correctly. But there was also that guy who got in the elevator. He was at that party or whatever, and he felt that pinch. And then he had passed away after that shortly by mysterious circumstances. But I noticed that episode started kind of taking off for us, Nick. And I'm like, that's kind of wild. I'm like, maybe something came out about Project 8200.
Right.
But what I found was that wasn't the case. There was actually a declassified CIA document that came out recently.
Oh, now you've got my attention.
Yeah. So I'd sent you a file not long after or right before we got on the podcast, and I didn't break down what it was, but it's the actual CIA document that we're going to be talking about here.
Oh, okay.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff to it, but the long and short of it is the beauty of Project 8200, which is what we covered, is we basically there's multiple things within all of those projects, and they were always ran by the same guys. And there was different projects inside Project 8200 or in association with. And one of the things that they did was called Project Sunstreak.
Okay.
And it was an umbrella project that came before Stargate. And we talked about Stargate.
Oh, yeah.
In the one episode, the whole reason that I even did that Project 8200, in which, eventually we might get around to covering a little bit more, but in Project 8200, one of the things they did later, which would have tied to the moon episode that we did, was they had remote viewers that was looking around the moon and they found aliens on the moon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is super fascinating. We never got into that part because I was going to turn that into another episode later.
Right.
But the reason this one's so interesting is they came out with Project Sunstreak, and what they was trying to locate was not a target. It wasn't a person. It wasn't a location. Guess what it was, Nick?
It was an object.
Ark of the Covenant.
I sort of read ahead a little bit.
As you should. Yeah. So they was looking for the Ark. So there was this viewer, code named 032. That's the name of the viewer. And he wasn't told what he was looking for. He was just handed a sealed envelope, which, as we covered in our episode, that's how they did it. And he was told to view whatever was there. And what he described was absolutely bone-chilling and scary. He said he saw a stone structure buried into a rock, and it was like it was partially underground, and it was in some remote dry area. It's said to have columns and ceremonial vibe, that it felt ancient and like there was something sacred being held there, which, again, we've talked about a few things, but what was super interesting is he said what was inside was a box. It was golden. It was box shaped with pole-like extensions on the outside of the box.
Okay.
And get this, he said it felt alive, like it had its own energy. Correct.
Oh, no, that's spooky and interesting.
Now, the viewers, as you know, a lot of times, like in our story that we told, he had viewed into a thing where there was these aliens, and they became scared because he believed that the aliens could see him also, right?
Right.
Well, this viewer, which they did not give a name, 032 was the code number, but he said they became fearful. He became scared to death. And he was also in awe at the same exact time.
Do you see all the words that he wrote on the very last page there?
Yep. You want to tell everyone?
Yeah. Destroyed, pain, anguish, horror, terror, death, scared. I don't know what that word is. Cover, forbidden, protected, lasting.
Yes.
That's
how creepy is that? That's super creepy, man. And that's the thing. Like when we talk about these remote viewers in the last episode, like we went into Mount Hayes. That's where the aliens were found.
Yeah.
And I was going to go into the moon. They also had a remote viewing in Jupiter, and also found that there was alien life there too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But what made it so interesting with this one is it's a CIA document where, again, they was using this remote viewer. And basically what his initial thoughts was that it was some sort of a power source or like a dimensional key, which I thought was super interesting.
Oh, yeah. That goes along with a lot of stuff we talk about all the time.
Correct. Because he felt energy signatures. He had involuntary reactions. And as he described it, a spiritual pressure And that's something that he felt, not necessarily something that he saw, because remote view, the way I put remote viewing, you know, sometimes like when you talk to a psychic medium, they're like, oh, I feel a pain in my head, or I feel a pain in my chest or my arm or whatever. And sometimes they're feeling whatever that person is feeling or felt when they were alive.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if it's one and the same. Because these remote viewers, they kind of doing the same thing, but I don't know. It weirded me out. And that's why I think people starting to look up our Project 8200, because we went into that. And the way it was labeled was God's weapon. And I don't know. There's also this place, I want to say it's like Ethiopia, I think. But they proclaim that they have inside that dome thing, the Ark of the Covenant. They also proclaim.
So there's some other stuff on these papers that I find eerie as well.
Yep.
It says watch by whom, and then it's got a lineup and it says mummies.
Yeah.
Like, that's interesting.
Correct.
Man, I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this, but a few times they use the word AOL, and I don't think it's the old service provider.
Yeah, internet service provider, Nick.
There's AOL in the Ark of the Covenant.
That's what made it. Listen, that's how they connected back in the day, Nick. I told you AOL was old.
I guess it is. But you saw that, though. What does that stand for? Did I just miss it here?
You know, I didn't catch that either. Luckily, I've got the old good old deep research thing over here, and I could ask it. Because let's be honest, AI is probably smarter than both of us combined, multiplied by 5.
Easily.
But I can ask it real quick. But the scary thing about that entire document, Nick, was the fact that our own government, the CIA, was looking at all this stuff, which is just creepy to me.
It wouldn't be the first time that they were caught up in some real arcane stuff, like some real fringe material. Like, they had programs about this kind of stuff, like we covered, and we've talked about a lot of times. Like, they're into this.
Right. And that's, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, with as many things as they're into, there has to be some type of I guess you could say, they're looking for the fringe, kind of like we do. Is probably the best way to put it.
I wonder if this is AOC.
I put AOL, and what is the analytical overlay AOL? The analytical overlay refers to the conscious mind's ability to interpret and make sense of raw psychic impressions during a remote viewing session. A viewer might perceive a tall, thin, metallic structure and instantly think it's the Eiffel Tower. That's an AOL. What does it stand for? I wonder if it's like a analytical overlay.
Yeah, so in the typed out part, it's got the target is similar in shape to AOL a coffin. Now, when I look at what he's writing, it looks like AOC, which could be Ark of Covenant.
Oh, yeah, it could be.
But in the typed out part, it's clearly AOL.
Well, that's what they're saying for AOL for this. So analytical equals thinking, logical brain overlay, something layered on top of the actual perspective or perception. Sorry.
Well, that kind of makes sense, I guess. Like, it's this guy's impressions over what he's seeing.
Yeah, like it gives an example. It says, it's basically your mind's way of saying, oh, that squiggly shape must be a bridge, even though all you really sense is a curved shape with the structure.
Well, here's one. AOL break Auschwitz. And that's weird.
That's kind of weird, yeah.
Middle East, Arabic. Dark hair, dark eyes. White clothes, mustache, angry, excited.
It says remote viewers are trained to label these moments in documents as AOL so they can stay focused on raw, unfiltered data.
Okay, that kind of makes sense because here it says, because it keeps saying AOL break and there's like coffins.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I go down a little further, AOL break, spirits, ghost.
But if you think back to biblical reference, the Ark of the Covenants was always protected. Like if you got into it, you like that was a death sentence. Like you would die.
Yeah. And that's like the Indiana Jones movie too, I guess.
Yeah. The interesting thing, and I want to say is Ethiopia that says, I can't remember. It's, man, I probably should have researched this sooner. I think it might have been Ethiopia. They proclaim to have the Ark of the Covenants and whatever that structure is they have there. And someone goes in and they don't come out until they die.
Oh, really?
So, and like people die fast.
Is that what this guy is drawn? Something with a dome and windows on it?
That's the thing. It's possible because Ethiopia Ark of the Covenant. I want to say that's where it is. Yes. So they're saying that the Ark of the Covenant is kept in the chapel in the city of Axum, guarded by Virgin Monk, who is the only person allowed to approach it and who serves only until he's appointed by a successor.
Okay.
In which I don't know what that I watched our buddy that does all the exploration, Gates. What's his name?
I know who
Gates.
you're talking about. I can't bring it to my forefront right now.
I can't think of that guy's name. We just watched something with him too. But anyway, he did an episode on it, and I want to say he went there. Sure. Yeah. Ark of the Covenant. Oh man. That's what was your description of that thing again?
A dome with windows that he had drew.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what he had drawn here.
I'm going to send you a picture. I'm going to send you a picture. We're piecing this together on the fly, folks. Usually when we research this back in the day, we already had this piece together. We're literally doing this live as we go. So this ark, where they say the Ark of the Covenant is being held, this is the structure. I just sent it to you, and folks at home will be able to see it right now.
So, excuse me, it doesn't look like the picture with the descriptions next to it doesn't entirely look like this, but it describes it, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, here's another picture of something they say it's being held in. So maybe that's part of it. Like maybe that's
that looks a lot closer to what he drew.
Because I think that other part is also on the property.
Okay. Like if you were like, because we talked about sometimes they get like the sensation of things rather than seeing it entirely, right?
Yes.
So this describes something with a dome on top and a lot of windows down the side. And I think that's the impression he got of it watching it. Let's see if there's other clues on here.
Yeah, according to this, when I type everything in, it says in Ethiopian tradition, the Ark of the Covenant is believed to be housed in the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum and is guarded by the succession of virgin monks who are forbidden from leaving the chapel grounds until their death.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
so this could describe these monks. People, background, white clothes, mustache, angry, excitable.
Well, here's the
maps. I don't know what that means.
Here's the thing when I'm reading through this, because there's so much information on all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It looks like they've had to protect this ark before from being stolen.
Mm.
And they're saying like 800 people has died protecting this ark.
Really?
Yeah, just on the property.
Well, hold on. I think I've got something from that here as well. Where did I see that? Because I've been... All right, so it's death, resurrection, homage, and protection. And it's like protected together as a people. Historical, spiritual.
I'm looking to see what their average lifespan is because I think they die not long after they go in to protect whatever this is.
Oh, okay.
I feel like they die relatively quick.
Well, it says young on here a couple of times.
Yeah, because they don't last very long. But the interesting thing that I find is apparently they don't see these monks until they're dead.
Okay.
And all of them come out of the thing with a cataracts over their eye.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Every single one of them. And what a lot of people say is their theory is the Ark of the Covenant is technically radioactive.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you think about it, when people's around in the old days, when they would open up the Ark of the Covenant, that's when they would instantly die. And if you think about it, like let's use, for example, remember what was that spear that had that
the Spear of Destiny or the Spear of Longinus?
No, I was trying to say Saphir. There was that.
Okay, sorry.
That what was it? The Demon Sphere? Is that what they called it, or the Devil Saphir?
Is that the one where if it taps slightly?
Yes.
The Demon Sphere, I think it was.
There was a scientist that had picked it up. And apparently there was a way that you had to do something, and it was with a screwdriver, and the screwdriver fell and hit it.
Yeah.
And then it destroyed his DNA in like a matter of like it was less than a second that the cover was actually off. Right. But that guy died like a horrific death. And I sit there and I think about it. That's such a small, such a small nuclear reaction. Think about
like the micro dose compared to what it could do.
And think about someone opening up the Ark of the Covenant if it was nuclear. I mean,
wouldn't that seem like a weapon? Like, couldn't you take that to a center of a town and flip the lid off?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. It would destroy everybody.
Right.
Including the person that flipped the lid off.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's real easy to get people who are super into a spiritual cause to do that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it's very interesting.
Oh, there's an interesting part. Decay, rotten tissue death. That sounds a lot like what you just said about the radioactive causing your cells to die.
100%. That's what I'm saying. It's all on those CIA docs. And maybe what I'll do is maybe I'll put that up on our, maybe I'll give like a copy of the CIA thing to where people in the description down below, maybe they can access that. Maybe I'll put it in like a Google Drive so people can access that from like one of our Google Drives or something if someone wants to read the actual CIA document.
Yeah, there's a lot in here. It's 19 pages, and there's not a lot on some of the pages, but it's fascinating because there's drawings.
Yes.
Of some stuff that I can't quite decipher, but a lot of it I can read.
It was super interesting when I started looking into this, and I'm like, why is this episode all of a sudden taking off? And I'm like, oh, because people's found this document. Now they're looking up Project Sarpo because that's where the remote viewers that's where it all started from. Right.
It's an interesting part. I wonder what this means. SZDAIEITI AOLAS. That seems like some kind of code or.
Do you want me to type it into the machine?
Yeah.
Spell it again?
Read it. SZ space D space AI space EI space T space I space AOL space AS.
What did this mean? Let me put that in there, see what it says. The line CZDAIEITIAOLAS is a perfect example of shorthand commonly found with CRV controlled remote viewing. The session's transcription lets it break down piece by piece. So SZ most likely means size. D probably means dimension or dark, depending on the context. Could also mean descriptor. AI is commonly used for aesthetic impact, which means how the target felt emotionally by the viewer, as in awe or fear or calm, etc. EI was emotional impact.
Oh, okay.
T could be texture.
Mm-hmm.
I is for impression or idea.
Okay.
AOL we talked about which is the analytical overlay, and AS is shorthand for as in or appears similar to.
Okay. It's almost like he was creating a grid here or something. Actually, yes. I think he did.
Isn't that interesting?
So what was D again?
D was dimensional or dark. It could also be considered a meaning of a descriptor depending on what the context was.
This is Windows cubic rooms, high places. And T was what?
Texture.
Desks, chairs, walls, hallway, courtyard. This is almost like a live investigation that we're doing here.
It kind of is. This is what we used to do back in the old day, folks. We would get this information and we would sit down. And this is another thing. I've been working with AI and I've slowly been developing things to make it easier for us to research this info and be accurate, which is what I'm currently using. But what it does is it pulls data and then it checks itself to make sure the information is correct. So going forward, I'm actually working on something right now that I haven't even talked to Nick about yet. But what I'm going to try to do is in the next couple of months, listening to our podcast when we record it will be in a basically a live AI that will be listening but never commenting. It will never talk. But let's say at this point, we could name the AI whatever we wanted to, but we could be like, what do you think about what we just talked about on this and this? And what does that mean? And it would be able to speak up and talk to us in real time.
That'd be cool.
I think that would be cool. Yeah. Because now like I'm typing some of the stuff out, but to have AI that's listening in real time and can hear the context of what, like right now we've been recording for what, like 30 minutes or something, 40 minutes probably.
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
But you know, the long and short of it is it would be able to come back and basically say, well, based on this context, here's where we're at with everything. But this is what we did back in the old days. We would get this information. We would sit there and just pour through all the information. But instead of having these kind of tools, we were going online and trying to figure some of the stuff out. That's why it would take weeks sometimes.
So this typed up section at the beginning sort of summarizes what he was talking about in here. Should I read this out?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so this is viewer 32, like you said, 5th of December, 1988. Target is a container. The container has another container inside of it. That would be good if you had a radioactive material, by the way. The target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver. The target is similar in shape to, and here we have that AOL break, a coffin, and is decorated with seraphim. So that's sort of like the winged drawing that was done down below there that I didn't really see.
Yep.
See sketch on page 16. The target is located somewhere in the Middle East as the language spoken by individuals present seemed to be Arabic. Visuals of surrounding buildings. So that thing that you showed me that had multiple buildings would fit there. Indicated the presence of mosque domes. Those were definitely mosque domes, I would say, or I would think that if I saw it. Individuals in the area were clothed in virtually all white, had black hair and dark eyes. One figure I honed in on wore a mustache. The target is hidden underground, dark and wet, were all aspects of the location of the target. The purpose of the target is to bring people together. See page 16. It has something to do with ceremony, memory, homage, and the resurrection. There is an aspect of spirituality, information, lessons, and historical knowledge far beyond what we know now. The target is protected by entities and can only be opened now by those who are authorized to do so. This container cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. Once it is time to open the container, the mechanics of the lock system will be found to be fairly simple. So I guess they can't get into it most of the time.
Or these remote viewers are locking into it.
Yeah.
And something's going, kind of like those aliens knew that they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a commandment. You shall not open this until the time.
Yeah. Individuals opening the container by prying or striking are destroyed by the container's protectors through the use of a power unknown to us.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm. So
now something else and I just looked it up while we were doing all this. Cataracts is a sign of acute radiation poisoning.
Well, there we go.
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. I keep going back to the drawing and how, while it's not exactly what the picture looks like, if someone were describing it to you, that's how you'd describe it.
Yep.
And that's the interesting thing for me. Plus, talk about the demon sphere like you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like
all that
double
stuff
locked away in boxes.
It all fits together, Nick, which is what makes it so interesting.
Now, I think gold has very similar properties to lead.
I don't know. Maybe.
Oh, here we are. So, you know how radiation we always would put in lead stuff?
Yeah.
So do you know what they use to protect astronauts going through the radiation belt leaving the Earth?
No.
Gold.
What?
Yeah.
Why don't they use lead?
Gold's a better radiation blocker.
Ain't that funny how that works?
Isn't it funny?
Man.
And this is shielded by gold on the inner box.
See, and what you guys don't know is whenever we would figure this stuff out, when we're like researching stuff back in the day, we would get giddy like this. And this is why we get so excited to do our podcast, because it's like, look at this crazy thing we found. This is like real time research is what we're doing right now.
Yeah. This is how it's done. I mean, this is how like a lot of people do this, but you don't get to see the inner workings on it unless you're listening right now,
right?
Or you're doing it yourself. And we're happy to have you along to look at this document.
Yes, 100%.
And come back and tell us what you're seeing that maybe we're missing on this.
Correct. Because the big difference is we used to research this stuff at least 2 weeks for me.
Right.
And that's when I would build an episode. Yeah. So you figure, right now we're doing this on the fly. We've been doing it for, an hour.
Right.
So not as much time there.
Yeah. And then once you see these documents, you'll realize they're not solid pages, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to be deciphered here.
And definitely what I'll do is I'll put it down in the description down below. I'll put it on our Google Drive and then allow access to anyone to be able to view the document. I think it's in a PDF form.
It is.
Because I think it's vital that you guys see this. It's at least, if anything, even if you don't believe in Project Serpo or any of that stuff, I find it weird that biblical and this are kind of, combined.
Did you hear that?
I heard something. I couldn't tell what it was.
It's a rumbling thunder. I think we've uncovered something we shouldn't have.
Oh, or we uncovered something we should have.
I know. That gave me chills hearing that right after this big revelation. I was like, whoa, I didn't even know it was doing that outside.
It's crazy.
But yeah, I love looking through these documents and stuff. We've been able to do this a few times on other things as well.
Yes.
We got to save all this and make a document library.
Oh, absolutely. 100% we should. Because the way I look at a lot of this stuff, like here's a great example. The cool thing about the way we do our podcast now is we can find information in 1 week and literally put it out to you guys. So it's significantly faster, but it's not necessarily as thoroughly researched as if we would have done a full episode on it.
Right. To me, that's better because we're leaving the door open that we can have sort of like a collaborative community.
Yes.
About it. Like we're starting the investigation. And we're happy to have our other members join in and, point out things that we missed, maybe give us counterpoints, dig deeper and show us stuff that's on the next level from this.
That's smart.
That's the kind of thing I want to be a part of.
And, I kind of came up with a concept similar, and I've not done a whole lot with it. I created a Discord page for my personal podcast.
Right.
And I never really did anything with it, but my intent was as I would do episodes, people could put their own theories and have like chats in between there. I wonder if we should do something like that for like us.
Well, we could. Let's look into that.
Because there's probably a lot of people that have Discord. And if you don't have Discord, it's super simple to sign up for Discord. It doesn't cost a dime, but maybe we could build like a Discord server and we could put some of these documents even in there as we're talking about the cases and stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Or like for more permanent links, we could store it on our website and link to it there.
Yeah,
like that
could
might
do that
be better
too.
Than Google Drive because no one will have access to disturb those.
Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of Discord. Like nothing ever really gets like rid on Discord either, unless it's specifically, like you and I could be admins, and maybe as time progresses, if there's people we could trust that's been around the community for a long time, maybe we could have some mods and some admins. But more than likely just some mods. But, maybe that's a case where we could put documents there. If you don't have a Discord, we could put on the website. Yeah. I think that is invaluable because what we're finding is a lot of this stuff, it all connects back together. And this is honestly how we find some of the better stories we have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we're just two guys. We could use the help.
100%
getting into this.
So. 100%. But no, I thought that was an interesting story. I know you've got a couple too, Nick. But I didn't even, honestly, when I came in today, I was going to talk about the Ark of the Covenant being at I didn't even think about the Ark of the Covenant, but the Oak Island thing. And then as I was sitting here talking about that, I was like, shoot, Nick and I talked about the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah. No, this is
that
good.
Popped up.
This is what I want to be doing, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have a couple little ones. But the big one, I think I'm going to save till next week. We teased about it on the other ones, how we said it would be fun to look in all the things that happened on the Poltergeist series.
Oh, yeah.
So next week, I'm going to put in a little more on that because there's a lot more than even I knew. And there's some stuff that's really wild on that. So I've got a lot to talk about on that. I've talked to it with you.
Yeah.
But I think I want to take our time a little bit with that. The other two newsworthy things, one of them's actually, they're both really kind of silly, to be honest, if you think about it. One of them is you've heard about, so we've seen a lot of AI art and it's very controversial.
Yeah.
Well, Studio Ghibli in Japan, that's Hayao Miyazaki's company. He does like Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, all that kind of stuff. Well, he's pushing back with lawsuits about that because their style is very distinctive. So it's expected that he's going to have some success with that to stop people from doing it. But that particular art style, people are using it as a ghost detector. Did you hear anything about this?
No.
So we've used a lot of AI art and we know that sometimes it recognizes things as a face. Like if you're taking a photo and then cartoonifying it or whatever.
Yep.
For example, I did one of a family that I won't say the name of, and it kept turning two of them into skeletons or adding another family member or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me, people who are sort of new to AI art and don't really know how it works are taking their like vacation photos or family photos and popping it in and having them transferred to Ghibli style art. and it's adding additional people in the background.
Yeah, which is common.
Yeah. It's because like 2 nails on a wall can be seen as eyes and stuff like that.
Right.
But there is a large portion of the online community who don't know much about AI who is certain that it's detecting ghosts and filling them in.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What you're hearing might be the heavy rain that started falling now.
See, I thought it was me for a minute. I'm like, I thought maybe I had rain.
No.
After we talk about the Ark of the Covenant, Nick, that's coming down for us.
I know we've unlocked the Ark, the secrets of the Ark, and now it's over and it's coming for me first. But it's heading down south. Don't you worry.
Oh, man, that's
You
fun.
heard it here first. The apocalypse is upon us.
It's upon us. Listen, we covered that a couple of episodes ago, too.
Yeah, we
the
did.
Final times, doggone it.
So yeah, that Ghibli thing's a public service announcement. It's not ghosts. It's not detecting ghosts.
It's not. You know
It's
what that
just
reminds me kind of though?
What's that?
Remember how Xbox had those Kinects?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And because it would detect what we would consider IRL, like pareidoia.
Right.
And what it would do is it would basically say, well, there's a person right there, when in reality it could just be like a sofa or the way shadows
light
work.
Pattern. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That scared a lot of people. I had, when I was young and easily fooled, I left, I was making a program that did Microsoft voice dictation.
Mm-hmm.
And I left it going in an attic of this place I was renting at the time. And when I came back, it had written out all kinds of stuff as if people were talking. But it was just trying to interpret creaks and stuff like that. But at the time, I was like, oh my God, ghosts.
That would be creepy if we're being a buck. Which reminds me, I saw today, Nick, our secret weapon. That's what I'm going to call this. Our secret weapon for when we do our investigations should be here tomorrow.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. It's supposed to be here. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that that's good.
Me too, man.
Cross it.
Because I think you're onto something.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm going to be super curious to see how that works out. My mom asked me because I told her what I bought, and she goes, "Are you going to turn that on in your house?" I said, "Hell no. What are you talking about? You crazy?"
I'm going to test it in your house. No, just kidding.
Before we close this podcast down, Nick, I got 2 pictures. I'm only going to give them one this week.
Okay.
Since we talked about that Ark for so long. Sorry, folks.
Yeah.
But I did find this picture interesting. The other picture will be similar to what this one is. And I'm sure, Nick, you probably know about this also. NASA has that rover on Mars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I did see a picture from that.
Oh, I wonder if it's the same picture.
I am curious.
That I'm about to share. Let me know when you see it.
I see it. It looks real zoomed in, though.
Yeah, well, it's not. So this is still kind of far out. So what this is, and you got to understand, NASA's putting this out, and you can kind of tell because I hit the wrong button. Basically what it's doing is, and it's kind of showing it here, like you can see where it's kind of, I forget what that's called, but they're splicing the picture basically together. Yeah. That's why there's these black marks.
Stitching. It kind of reminds me of how, remember how pictures used to download on the old dial-up internet? Yeah.
Correct. And in essence, that's basically what's happening when you think about it. But in this picture, there was something that NASA didn't really anticipate, and it's right here. Do you see this right here?
I do see that. What is that?
Well, what's that shape? If you was to guess, what shape would this be?
I mean, to me, it looks like a fish or something.
Kind of. But a lot of people saying, well, that's a tic tac. Remember?
Like not a literal tic tac.
No, but there's a Commander Favor who was with the Army or the Air Force back in the 90s. He talked about a tic-tac shaped object that he was chasing on radar.
Can you zoom back out again?
Uh-huh. And that is a perfectly shaped tic-tac.
So they're saying that's not part of the rock formation. That's like out in front of the rock formation.
Here's the thing. I'm about to blow your mind, Nick.
Okay.
Let's zoom back in for a second. You see that tic-tac shape, right?
Yeah.
You look at the side of the mountain. Let's just look over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this cliff edge, right?
Yeah. With
There's
the
a shadow.
And stuff. Yeah.
Right? Shadows for the lip of the thing, right? You can clearly see that things are pretty solid. It gives that very solid shadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfectly cylinder shadow.
Oh, actually, I was looking at the wrong thing before. I see what you're talking about now.
Yeah. So this up here where that hand is, this is the object. This is the shadow for the object.
Right.
If that was a cliffside, it wouldn't be a perfectly circular shadow.
Interesting. Yeah, I see what you're talking about now.
So I found that the other day when I was looking, because I heard about it somewhere else, and I found people that had already drawn all over the picture. I'm like, I want to see the actual photo. Like, I want to see the, and this took me an hour to find.
You know what the funny thing about it is?
What?
Is I could not see it until I saw it. And now I can't stop seeing it.
Correct. Like if you look over here though, like this formation, like look at that perfect shadow.
Yeah.
But it connects to the bottom of the object.
As I would expect it to.
Correct. Even here, bottom of the objects.
Yeah.
But the moment you get right here, look, there's clearly that shape. It's the same dimensions.
And it's not connected.
And it's not connected. So whatever this is hovering. And this is the shadow to the object hovering.
Interesting. See, the only thing I worry about this is, you know, how you were talking about pareidoia before.
Yep.
Like, I worry that I've just convinced myself, and that's what I'm seeing because I see it now.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. You can look at this entire photo.
Yeah.
Object, shadow.
Right.
Object, shadow side.
Right.
Large object, large shadow. Like anywhere else in the photo, shadows. Shadows. This is the only spot in the entire photo where you see something and there's something exactly shaped the same dimension.
Exact same length and everything.
Same exact length.
And there's nothing above it that would be casting that shadow.
Correct.
Yeah, I can't stop seeing it now.
How crazy is that?
I feel like if you zoomed it out way, way far back.
Oh, you would see it.
I'm seeing it even better now. And for the life of me looking at it before, I was like, I don't see anything. But once you see it, that's it.
It's like stop. Those, what do they call those? Stereograms? Is that what they call those things?
Oh, the magic eye things?
The magic eye things, yeah.
That you see on the bottom, there's that big set of shadows that look like a series of
right down
pillars.
Here.
Can you zoom in on that one with the little thing on top of it? Is that the rover?
What, this thing?
No, see, if you go down on the shadow, there's almost like a little something on top of that.
You know, like that? Right here?
Is that the rover we're looking at?
No, I think that's this.
Oh, okay.
Because if you look at it, so wherever that star is, or it'd be our sun, but the shadows are all perpendicular, so they're going this direction.
It looks like something weird balanced on there, doesn't it?
It's this rock. See that rock right there?
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I think that rock is so close that it's causing that.
Yeah, it must be.
That angular. Yeah. But that's the thing. No matter where else you look in these.
Yeah. I've been scanning and I don't see anything else like that.
And here's what I can't figure out. How did somebody see that?
There are people, I believe, actually, I more than believe, I know there are people that get every photo that comes from NASA and they go through it pixel by pixel. I know that these people exist.
Well, there is one more photo. Should I just do it real quick, Nick?
Yeah, let's do it right quick.
Let's do it real quick. There's one more that came from the Curiosity rover.
Okay. I wonder if this is the picture I saw.
I bet it is, because I think there's only really two in the grand scheme of things. I think there's only really two big ones. Share. So this is kind of the same deal. Is this the one you saw, Nick?
No, I saw one different. It was much closer to the rover.
Oh, I gotcha.
But there wasn't anything mysterious in that one.
shoot, I can't zoom in any further on this. Hold on. I got another image that I will do it a little bit better. It'll do it a little bit better because I can zoom in a little easier. But
I'm amazed just seeing these pictures. Like this is
outrageous.
To me, it's difficult to think of being on another planet and it being similar to where we are, because this is similar.
Exactly.
Like it's hard. It just doesn't seem like a real place. I would imagine everything would be different.
Oh yeah, me too.
But it's not really.
It's not. But you look at this photo and they're saying this is a door. It's perfectly squared.
Yeah. Yes, I see that.
Perfect square. And when you zoom out, nothing else is a perfect square like that.
Now that's neat.
Like if
I
you
saw
look
that
here,
right away when you showed that one.
Yes. And that's what makes it so odd. Like I can literally zoom out and see it, but I mean, look at that. That is a perfect square, or should I say rectangle door. And if you look at it, look at the way the shadows are angling. Same way as before.
Yeah.
So the shadow.
It looks like on the side there, it was carved out suddenly.
Yes, exactly what it looks like.
Wild.
Which the question, if you think about it, in the old days, and we're talking about, especially like if you look at old biblical references to tombs, they carved out sides of the mountains.
So we're going to go to Mars one day. So I don't think anyone has done this before, but so I'm going to do it. Dibs on that cave. That's mine.
Could you imagine what the resale value is? Man, you could make a fortune.
I dibsed it. You heard it here first.
Heard it here first. As long as I can stop by. Or you could do like an Airbnb, Nick.
Oh, yeah. That's our headquarters.
That's perfect.
We're going to toss all kinds of little Martian bodies out to clean it out and spin clean.
I don't know. I found all this stuff super interesting this week. I thought this is a lot of cool stuff.
Dude, I'd be happy if we just talked about even regular stuff in space.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. That's my favorite.
You know what makes it so interesting is we covered something very close last week in the episode last week, Nick, where we talked about that planet that was in that habitable zone.
Yeah. I've seen more pictures of it since then.
Oh, we've got pictures of it? Like,
I didn't want to present it until I find out if they're just renderings, if they're actual pictures, because it looks like a habitable planet.
See, how would they be able to see that far?
I think they can, but I think a lot of the pictures are renderings. So if I find some and find out that they're legit, I'll bring them next week. Yeah,
I'd be super curious. And in fact, next week, if you bring that, Nick, I've got a story that I've been sitting on for a few weeks.
Oh, yeah. Man, I'll bring any space story to get a space story. It's a tradesy.
And the teaser for that, Nick, maybe we're living in a black hole.
Oh, I'm interested. I'm hooked. I'll be back next week.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast or something that we didn't cover, definitely let us know in the comments down below. Also, wherever you're listening to the podcast, please make sure that you hit that thumbs up button. Let people know that we're here, folks. Listen, we're trying to get out of YouTube jail. Eventually, they got to let us out.
Yeah. Help us investigate. We're into that too.
Correct. And maybe we'll look into, let us know if there's any interest in the comments down below. If you're interested in like a Discord service, and maybe we could even talk about some of these stories, and you can help us talk about other stories you're fascinated with or things that you want us to look into, or heck, maybe you run into something you want us to talk about on these weekly, because we do them weekly. So, maybe you could hear your stories, and maybe we'll even give you a shout out for giving us the info.
Heck yeah. We got a quick turnaround these days.
You doggone right. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. We appreciate you being here. Until we see you in the next podcast. Goodbye.
Arr, mateys.
We're back to sea, boys.
I've come full circle.